Before you dive in, brace yourself. This is the kind of story that grabs you by the heart and refuses to let go. What happens when a bullied girl, slapped in front of 200 students, rises in a way no one ever saw coming? And how does a CEO's genius son, who's allergic to every gold digger alive, end up hugging a poor babysitter and calling her mom? If you love shocking twists, unstoppable character growth, and revenge served cold and beautifully, hit subscribe now so you never miss stories that explode with emotion, power, and redemption. Mira Lee had always known pain, but she never expected humiliation to strike so suddenly, so publicly, and so ruthlessly. On the day the school bullies slapped her in front of 200 students gathered in the assembly hall, their laughter rising like smoke, curling poisonous and thick around her trembling frame as she stood frozen, her cheek burning, her pride shattered, and her spirit teetering on the edge. But little did anyone know that moment, that slap, that humiliation, would become the spark that ignited a future not even fate had dared to predict, because from that day forward Mira's life would twist into paths darker, brighter, and far more powerful than any bully, teacher, or spectator could imagine. Her world would collide with that of a cold CEO and his genius son, a child allergic, quite literally, to every gold digger who tried to get close, but who would wrap his tiny arms around Mira one day and whisper, "Mom," unraveling secrets that would expose legacies, broken dynasties, betrayals, and a destiny rewritten by courage. The slap happened because Mira, a scholarship student at Crestwood Academy, refused to do the bullies' homework again, especially for Clara, the principal's daughter, who strutted around as if she owned the world, her entourage following like shadows. When Clara slapped her, the crowd gasped, phones rose to record, and teachers pretended not to see, but Mira didn't cry, didn't beg, didn't flee. She simply stared back with a fire so cold, so fierce, that even Clara felt a flicker of unease, though she'd soon laugh it off, unaware that she had just created the woman who would destroy her entire kingdom of privilege one day. But that day, Mira left school heartbroken and bruised and walked straight into her job, the one thing that kept her mother's medical bills paid, a babysitter for a family she'd never met, arranged through an agency that hired only those with perfect discipline and spotless records. She didn't know the employer was none other than Adrian Hale, the ruthless, untouchable, ice-blooded young CEO of Hale Global, whose name journalists whispered and whose gaze shareholders feared. She didn't know he was returning from his overseas trip that same evening, exhausted, furious, and in no mood for surprises, least of all involving his son, Asher Hale, the 5-year-old genius whose medical reports were stamped with one terrifying warning: allergic reaction triggered by manipulative emotional intent. A bizarre but real physiological condition that caused Asher to break out in hives, fever, or breathing issues whenever he sensed greed, dishonesty, or emotional exploitation directed at him. Adrian had hired and fired 97 nannies, babysitters, and caregivers in the past 3 years because Asher reacted to each of them, their fake sweetness sending him straight to the hospital. And then there was Mira, the 98th attempt, though she didn't know it yet, walking into the mansion with swollen cheek, tear-streaked face, and an exhaustion that made her simply breathe and whisper, "I just need today not to fall apart." As the massive doors opened, the marble floors gleaming under a chandelier worth more than her family's house, and the silence so thick, she almost turned around. But when she stepped into the living room, she spotted a small boy curled up on the couch, hugging a stuffed blue dragon and staring at her with eyes far older than his age, observing, analyzing, calculating. She swallowed, unsure what to do, but she smiled gently, not the practiced caretaker smile, not the agency smile, but a tired, real, human expression that carried no agenda, no greed, no desperation, just warmth. And in that moment, something unbelievable happened. Asher stood up, walked straight to her, examined her bruised cheek with tiny fingers, and then wrapped his arms around her waist, burying his face in her stomach as he whispered a quiet, trembling, "Mom." Mira froze, her heart slamming into her ribs, confused and overwhelmed, but before she could react, Adrian Hale walked in, dressed in an immaculate black suit, eyes cold enough to freeze oceans, and the moment he saw Asher hugging a stranger, a reaction the boy had never shown even to his own biological mother, he stopped breathing. Security guards tensed, ready to pull Mira away, but Asher clung tighter, glaring at them with a protective ferocity that shocked everyone. Adrian approached, confusion and suspicion warring in his gaze, his voice a low, sharp command, "Who are you to make him act like this?" Mira stammered that she was the new babysitter, just hired today, and didn't understand what was happening, but Adrian's disbelief only deepened because Asher, the child who had screamed at every caretaker before, was now calmly holding Myra's hand and pulling her toward his room. No allergic reaction, no panic, just trust. Adrian studied her as though she were a puzzle piece that didn't fit any pattern, but he allowed it, though with a warning: if you hurt him, I will ruin you. What he didn't know was that Mira, broken as she was, would sooner let herself burn than cause harm to a child who had chosen her without reason. Over the next days, Mira became the first person Asher allowed near him without breaking into hives. He followed her, trusted her, slept peacefully for the first time in years, and even smiled, a rare phenomenon Adrian had almost forgotten existed. Slowly, Adrian's icy walls cracked as he watched Mira heal his son with nothing but kindness, patience, and a strange, unexplainable connection that doctors called impossible. But something darker brewed beneath the surface, because Clara, the bully, learned that Mira now worked for the richest bachelor in the city, and jealousy ignited her fury. Rumors started spreading at school that Mira was sleeping her way into wealth, that she targeted Adrian on purpose, that she manipulated Asher. The lies reached Adrian's board members, who pressured him to fire her for reputation's sake. But when Adrian confronted her, he found Mira sitting beside Asher, helping him with a complex puzzle, speaking softly, her voice steady despite her heartbreak, and Asher clutching her sleeve with silent panic at the thought of losing her. The moment Adrian tried to speak the words, Asher erupted in hives so violently that Adrian had to rush him to the emergency room, doctors shouting that his condition had escalated due to emotional distress. When Asher regained consciousness, the first word he whispered was, "Mom," and the doctors told Adrian bluntly, "Whatever bond they have, it's stabilizing him. Remove her, and you may lose him." Adrian made his choice. Mira stayed. And that decision unleashed chaos. Clara stormed the Hale mansion with her influential parents, demanding Mira be fired, accusing her of seducing the CEO, but Adrian, cold, furious, protective, publicly announced that Mira was under his personal protection and that anyone who threatened her would face legal destruction. The scandal exploded. Across the internet, paparazzi swarming, tabloids publishing lies, and Mira hiding in fear until Adrian assured her, in a rare moment of vulnerability, "You didn't ask for any of this. You helped my son. For that alone, I will protect you." As they fought battles together, Mira discovered that Asher's mother, Adrian's ex-wife, had left not because she abandoned them, but because she feared the child's condition made him dangerous, and Adrian, destroyed by the betrayal, never trusted another woman again, until Mira. Meanwhile, Clara's family, desperate to regain favor, attacked Mira in the same school hallway where she had once been slapped, but this time, Mira stood tall, with Adrian, Asher, and a team of lawyers behind her. The bullies' cruelty was recorded, exposed, and Clara's father lost his political position while Clara was expelled, her empire of influence crumbling. In the aftermath, Adrian confessed to Mira that he admired her strength, her resilience, her gentleness with Asher, and her ability to stand up after every fall. But the greatest twist came when DNA tests, run secretly by the agency, revealed something unexpected. Asher's reaction to gold diggers wasn't just psychological. It was genetic, inherited from a rare lineage that responded violently to emotional manipulation, and only Myra's unique emotional frequency, shaped by her trauma and resilience, neutralized it, making her the only person on Earth who could be Asher's stabilizing figure. When Adrian learned this, he didn't use it against her. He simply said, "It seems my son chose his mother long before we knew why." And for the first time in years, Mira cried, not from pain, but from finally feeling seen, valued, and wanted. The slap that once broke her became the moment that forged her destiny, leading her from humiliation to healing, from abandonment to belonging, from bullied girl to the heart of a family that needed her as desperately as she needed them. And when Asher called her, "Mom," again, this time laughing, healthy, happy, Mira realized she had not just survived her past, she had rewritten her future.